The goal of the show is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. We do that every single week by sharing the stories and advice of those rocking it on the other side. On our LinkedIn, we post advertising news you need to know in 60 seconds or less. You should follow us there, turn on post notifications. I guarantee it's unlike any other ad news you've ever seen before. Today, we're joined by Anthony Sperduti, founder and executive creative director at Mythology, the agency behind the early branding of Warby Parker, Harry's, and J. Crew's liquor store concept, and even Peloton's first national campaign. We're going to talk with Anthony on how he went from faking his way into his first studio job to really helping launch category-defining brands. He shares raw advice on breaking into the industry, lessons from working with fearless founders, and how to stay creatively energized even as your agency scales. So if you're an aspiring advertiser, a creative, or a founder, this episode will definitely teach you a little bit about brand building, hustle, and carving your own path. Plus, you'll hear why he thinks anxiety might just be a creative superpower. Now on with the show. This is the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast, and as usual, I'm your accomplice, Gino Schellenberger. Kick it, Mikey. All right, Anthony Sperduti, welcome to the Breaking and Entering Advertising Podcast.
Thanks, buddy.
Of course. We're here to talk about you. We're here to talk about mythology and all your best advice for the next generation. How does that run a show sound?
That sounds great. I will do my best.
You will do great.
Who the fuck knows what's going on for the next generation?
Oh, I know. Yeah, at least can we talk about how they can get a job and just because we don't know what the future is going to be like with AI and stuff.
Yep.
So I think that's a good point. So we'll learn from your story and then we'll dissect it. What would you have done differently? I think that's like the best way to go about this.
Great.
Plus, you probably hired a good amount of people.
Yeah,
in your days.
It's got to be in the hundreds, I would think.
Yeah. So you know what like works and what doesn't work. Yep. Like there's probably some innate human truths when you're hiring people of what you're looking for.
Totally. And I think those things that's how I got into the business too. I think I look for the same things that people probably saw in me when I got my break. So yeah, I think it's a human truth.
So we'll get into all of that, but first, like, what do you like to do outside of advertising, outside of work, or is it all work, which is cool too? I like that hustle stuff, but I know we're not supposed to talk about that.
No, well, I have a little 4-year-old, so if I'm not working, I'm a father.
Okay.
There's not really any wiggle room for anything else.
4-year-old.
Yeah.
What goes on in a 4-year-old's life?
Holy
what
shit.
stage is that in Piaget's?
She's potty trained. She's obsessed with unicorns. All she does is make up songs and sing them. And then when I read books at night for her bedtime, she has to perform them. So she gets on her own little quote unquote stage.
Nice.
And she acts out the books as I read them. So that's her life.
Okay, so we got some creative direction. Future, I'm sensing that. That's so fun. Great. Yeah, how do you balance that out? Like, do you find yourself working more efficiently in the day to get home to
totally.
her?
Yeah, I mean, I think my anxiety probably has given me a pretty good work. It's probably given me a shitty life, but a really good work ethic. Where for me to tamp down my anxiety, I need to get in early and I just need to do all the things and then some. Mm-hmm. And so I've always been a pretty efficient worker because I think that's how I've managed my anxiety.
I feel like anxiety is when you know what you need to do and you haven't done it yet. It's like
totally. And I hate that. Doing the work feels less shitty than that feeling.
Oh, for sure.
So
It's like, same thing for waking up early to work out and stuff. Like people don't want to do it, but for me, it's like missing that or not doing what I need to do gives me more anxiety. So It's just the actions is a good antidote to that.
Yeah, I'm home by 6:00 each night.
That's nice.
Then if I have to go back, if I have to get back on email or something, I do. But
yeah, got it. So this this is interesting stuff, which kind of makes sense of the action and like combating anxiety, being a founder of an agency, founder, CEO, founder.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can give myself whatever title. I'm definitely
Yeah.
the founder.
Yeah.
And I usually say ECD because in the end, I'm a creative by trade, and
Yeah.
I'm involved in all the work. There's there's incredibly talented people at the studio, but I like to stay in the work when it makes sense.
So give me
Yeah.
the rundown of Mythology in the
Sure.
shop. Like, what is it all about? What's the differentiation point? What did you build it on?
Sure.
Give me your version of this.
So the it's about 17 or 18 years old. It used to be
Nice.
called Partners in Spade. I started it with a business partner, Andy Spade. He and I had been creative partners since early 90s, and when he sold his business that he had started with his wife, he and I decided to start a studio together. And we did that, and it was called Partners in Spade, and we got lucky with a few really early on clients that we were able to do some great work for. So our first client was J. Crew, and it was Mickey Drexler, and we had come up with the concept, the liquor store, which was taking an old bar in Tribeca and turning it into a men's clothing store to just give their men's line a real personality. It was at that point, it didn't really have one, and at that same time, Jen Alliance was becoming creative director there, and she was doing really amazing things on the women's side, and Todd Snyder, the men's designer, was doing great things on his side. And so doing that store was just one of the pieces that let that brand really kind of take off. And so we got a lot of great clients from there. The next, I would say, interesting project that we did was Warby Parker. Those guys had launched their brand. They were about a year old.
Yeah.
We met their founders when there was 20 or 30 employees, and we were lucky enough to be their creative partner and help them build the brand from.
Stop it. That's insane.
Yeah, it was really fun. The first thing we did for those guys was a guerrilla fashion show where we didn't tell the New York Public Library we were going to put a fashion show on. And we snuck a bunch of models into the big, great reading room.
Yeah.
We told editors and journalists to just show up at a certain time. And so everyone's like, what is this? And then at 3:30, everyone had like a little alarm on their phones or watches or whatever. And they all put on their glasses and they all put up these books that they had brought in with them we had redid the cover, so the name of the frame, the style name was on the cover of the book. So it just became this like kind of impromptu, like little, almost like lookbook shoot fashion show. And of course the security guards were freaking out because it was like all of a sudden there was like 40 people all doing the same thing at once, but we weren't doing anything and no one was making any sound. So they weren't quite sure how to kick us out, but they wanted to, and they eventually did. But so that kicked off a really fun collaboration. I don't know, we worked with Warby for maybe 10 years.
Wow.
So we designed all their stores. We helped them with their first brand book. We did their first set of commercials, helped them with the photography for their websites, like a number of things over the years. And then that led to launching Harry's Razors, which we still work with those guys. And then a number of different things, kind of in the digitally native, venture-backed space. There was a lot of clients we worked with in the early days.
I'm actually so fascinated by that as like a business owner, founder. Like, what was it like working with the co-founders, right? Two gentlemen for
Actually,
Warby Parker.
there's actually four founders. Two of them ran the business. The other two did other things with their day jobs.
Gotcha. So, like, what did you learn from them?
But they're both all four of those guys are incredibly generous with their time and with their kind of advice, and they're just really all bright. I think the thing I learned from them the most, they took really, really big chances in the early days. I remember they were small when we decided there was a holiday pop-up. They were like, we don't have a store yet. We don't have a physical presence. We want to do something for holiday. And we want it big, and we got to pull it off in the next few weeks. And so we came up with some ideas, and we're like, the budget's, I can't remember what it was. I don't know, call it $500,000 or something.
Okay.
But back, 10, 12 years ago, for a company that was only 20 or 30 employees, was like a big number. And I remember Danilo like, yep, that's what it takes. Let's do it right. Let's go big or go home. And it was just one of those things that I guess maybe coming from the world of advertising and the agency life that I grew up in, the corporate decision making is a very specific, usually a specific kind of decision making, and seeing those guys as founders being like, yeah, this company's a year and a half old. We have momentum. Maybe we haven't raised the money, but whatever money we have, we're going to put into this idea. I like this idea. It's going to get attention. Let's just do it. and seeing their big swings and how bold they were and unafraid of like, and if it fails, it fails. If it wasn't the right thing to do, we did it for a good reason.
Yeah.
That mindset was very different from what I had come from advertising wise. So I think that's one of the big things. And then I think the other big thing I learned from those guys is they are nice people. They hired nice people. The tenor of that company still, when you walk, a few thousand employees now, however big it is, they're all very good people. And I know that came from those guys individually. And so that stuff trickles on. So I think that's also a really good reminder. It's like founders can really set the tenor, no matter how big the company gets, of the personality of the company.
I mean, that sounds like a dream client from an agency's perspective to work with.
Totally.
Somebody
It was.
like bravery. And like, I don't know, like, how did you, you didn't really have to push them, it seemed like, but were you like afraid? Like, cause it's a fresh brand. They had good potential. Like, these campaigns could be make or break potentially.
That's funny. That's a great question. I'm sure there were moments where there was like, okay, now you've given me the rope to hang myself. Like, I hope we don't really fuck this up.
Yeah.
But if I remember right, it felt more like I knew I had a really good sense of where I thought the brand should go.
Yeah.
I think that, in working with those guys, I knew what they wanted to take it to. I knew the attitude, the spirit they wanted the brand to be. I knew we could do that. And I think for me, yeah, I'm sure there was plenty of smaller moments of going like, oh my God, we're not going to pull this off, or there was a lot of things we were being scrappy about. But I think for the most part, it was more excitement than fear, only because I was a young company, they were young, and it felt like every time we did something, it worked.
Yeah. Why
So-
though? It probably because it wasn't like, I'm just thinking in the founder mode in the early stages, you have to move quick. You don't have a lot of budgets, but I'm assuming that you guys as an agency developed some sort of strategy, some sort of brand world, some sort of vision platform that they agreed to. Or was it just like, let's shoot the shit here?
It was kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like I remember the second project, they were like, can we do a brand book? We need one of those.
Okay.
But we were doing projects while we were doing that, if I remember right. And so I think it was a little bit of both. And we were figuring it all out together. I think, again, they knew where they wanted the brand to go, and they had a personality before we started working with them of the brand. And I could see how much further we could, what we could add to that. And because I think there was an energy, and we got lucky with the first few things we did collectively together. I think it just emboldened all of us to just like, yeah, no, this is working. People want this. I get what we're offering. I get the brand we're going to build, even if I haven't written it all out. And we were only 6 people at the time, 7 people.
Yeah.
Our agency
You're
was
kind of building your own brand too.
Yeah, and so it all just kind of, it all kind of rose together, and we, it was one of those, moments of like really great collaboration, kind of on a personal level, on a creative level, on a professional level, and to this day they're all very good friends of mine, and their internal agency, their internal creative team is probably as big as my agency, so they don't need us anymore.
Sure.
But it was an amazing collaboration.
That is interesting. Got it. So does Mythology today kind of focus in that same target client atmosphere where they're all like like Warby Park, Warby was then?
Yeah, I mean, as we grow and as, the world shifts, there's a bunch of things going on that I think I still love the founder mentality. I still love working on brands that are founder-led.
Yeah.
We also have to work and enjoy working on a much larger clients.
Yeah.
So Target's been a client of ours for 12 years.
Nice.
And so, obviously that's on the other end of the scale.
Yeah. For sure.
But there's crossover and similarities, and a lot of the big mature brands really appreciate that we are, pretty fluent in the founder space and have an entrepreneurial spirit and work with entrepreneurs. And so that energy we try to bring over to the more mature businesses. So we do a bit of both. And the other kind of macro trend that I would say is happening is venture-backed consumer brands. There's a fraction of those than there were 5 years ago. So that the kind of wave we rode 15 years ago, up until the last few years, that probably has crescendoed, and it'll come back in a different way, and we'll see what role we have to play. But my job is to just also make sure we evolve, and we're not, that's maybe how we started, and there's still parts of that we do and enjoy, but it's like, yeah, we've learned so much now. We have a team of 50 people. How do I take what we learned and apply it to a Fortune 50 company? And that's been the fun things to start to figure out.
Yeah, you're definitely growing, expanding. That's incredible. So how would you define Mythology today? Like, what's on your website? What's the positioning statement?
We are the agency for brands that really challenge. And that could be like, if a brand has a challenging a behavior, or if that brand is challenging a way of distributing something, if that brand has a novel new product that is a category of one, like there's any version of that challenge. But I think what we're good at is taking those things that usually consumers have to wrap their arms around or really understand, and we're able to synthesize something pretty complex and turn it into something that's human, that's simple, that feels understandable, that's compelling.
Yeah.
So, like we were Peloton's first ad agency, did their first big national TV campaign. That was something people didn't understand. Can I get a workout at home? Am I just watching HBO on the screen? Like,
yeah.
What was it? So our campaign had to be aspirational, had to be emotive and all that stuff. But at the heart of it, we also understood we had to make people comprehend what this thing is.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those brands, Warby Parker selling things online, if you remember, way back in the day, they had to convince people that you could try something on and return it easily to them. That wasn't a thing when they started. The idea of like trying on at home and pick 5 pairs or try on 5 pairs and pick one was like, all of those things were all novel. So I think what we specialize in is taking those things that are like just on the cusp and helping them with that tipping point and helping people understand that.
It's so fun.
It's super fun.
I would like to work on stuff like that. You bring up a good point there. So interesting. So you've grown. Tell the people where you guys are located.
Sure.
You said you have 50 people. Let's get the facts. Just
the facts.
Like this
facts.
Easy stuff.
We're going on 18 years old. I renamed it Mythology. Andy and I split as business partners 6 years ago, I think it is. So we renamed it Mythology, which is really at the heart of what we do. Like, we're building brand worlds for people. That can include advertising and marketing. That can just be the name or the packaging of something. That could be, how the brand behaves. It could be the strategy, or it's all of the above. So I like the idea of building these worlds for companies. So we're called Mythology. We're 50 people. We're in NoHo in New York. We've been in that neighborhood since we started. It's great. We're really happy there. What else? That's about it, right?
Yeah. Got it. Mythology. I mean, that's a cool name. I mean, it stands out. So
it was one of those things too where.
What else were you thinking name-wise?
Actually, I had no backup, so it was like,
that's good.
And when I could get the mythology.com, like when I could get the URL, it was like $30K or something. I was like, oh shit, this has got to be the name. Like, it was something that I really liked.
Yeah.
And then by dumb luck, the URL was parked. I was able to grab it for not so much money. And then I knew it was like the right name.
Yeah.
It felt right. Got
it. And since that rebrand, any sort of change in like how you guys go about working when you split with the business partner? Or was it pretty seamless?
I think pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Pretty seamless. And I think, I don't think our focus really changed. I think, as the world is changing, we're changing. But I think the split, the business, how it was and how it was engineered to be, I had always felt really good about it. And I think we consistently stayed the same. I think if anything, we probably took on larger projects, took on larger.
How'd you get those? Because you've named like Target, Harry's, Warby. Like, is it being in New York? I'm assuming you grew up here. Is that true?
No, I came here in 1990, so I came to college here. But it feels like I've grown up here.
I'm sure that's a long freaking time in New York. I've only been here for like 7 months, and it's wild.
Yeah, it's a long fucking time. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Getting those clients though, is it networking, just new business? Like, what's been the secret sauce?
Honestly, the secret sauce, I bet you anyone that you've asked, in my chair has probably said the same thing. It's like the work.
Yeah.
And it's not even just, was that a piece of great creative? It's like, was that a piece of good creative and did it work?
Yeah.
Like, we got,
Are you like sending, because like the work is always like the core of it. Like, are you sending it out? Just like they're noticing it with PR? Like,
we're terrible at that stuff. and I need to get better at
Well,
it.
you're on the most important advertising podcast right now.
That is fucking exactly right.
Yeah.
Here I am.
So,
So
nice
we're getting
job.
better at it.
Yeah.
We're getting better.
Yeah.
It's generally been the venture-backed world and the founder-led world. It's a pretty tight-knit community, and we were one of few agencies that people, were able to name check because we had a pretty good run of hits.
And how'd you get? Was Warby that first one that kind of broke
Yeah.
you into that venture-backed world? How'd you get that one?
It was because we had done J. Crew, and we had someone had randomly, it was actually a real estate agent, had hooked us up and said, "Hey, I know you guys just did the J. Crew liquor store. I've got these clients, this new startup called Warby Parker. They're thinking about doing a store." And so we talked about doing a store, and then that didn't happen. But they're like, "Well, actually, we want to do something for Fashion Week." So that's when we did the public library stunt. And they're like, "Oh, that came off well. Well, maybe we do something for holiday. And could you help us with the brand book?" And it built from there. And then as they started to really kind of dominate, then there were other founders. Harry's was a brand we launched with Jeff Rader, who was one of the Warby Parker founders. So we did Harry's. Yeah, he's one of the four guys.
Got it.
And then he partnered with a guy named Andy Ketz Mayfield, and those two started Harry's. So we did the name, the logo, and launched that brand for them.
It's a good brand.
It's a great
good brand.
Thank you.
Yeah, they got the body washes now.
They sure do, and we just redid the brand that as of 3 weeks ago. So new packaging, new logo.
Okay.
Just launched a new film for them. They launched a new razor yesterday. So, go Harry's.
That's so fun. It's so fun. I love the idea of like building brands at the start.
do too.
Like that's like my favorite part. I would love to open up a shop one day where it's just like naming, brand building at the start, and then send it off to the agencies, and they can screw it up later on.
Yeah, I mean, so we try to be the agency that screws it up later on. So like I try to stay with them,
which makes
but sometimes
sense.
we don't. Like,
Yeah.
but that fundamental like building a brand, we all love that.
It's so sick.
It's great.
Yeah.
And you could start that easily.
Yeah. I feel like there's like a market where everybody's got these business ideas, and like they might be pre-funding, like just set them up for success early on.
And a lot of them are now wanting to spend less, like not pay someone as large as us,
Right.
but do something smaller and quicker, see if it kind of works. And then if it's like the brand is good enough or is like interesting enough and it's done cheaply and it starts to catch fire, then they can go back and, look at the brand later. So there's definitely a model for like quick iterative brand building, which would be fun.
We can do a collaboration of some sort, breaking entering Mythology, brand services.
It's a great name. You've got a great name. Sign me
Breaking
up.
entering makes sense. Like you're breaking your brand into the world.
Yeah, there you go.
Your brand's
Okay.
breaking entering into the world.
I love that.
Okay, we'll work on that. How do you break it? How did you break into all this business? Going back, the name of the show.
Yeah, should we do that?
Yeah,
Should we do
yeah,
that
let's kick
story?
it back, yeah.
The origin story?
Yeah, when did you realize you want to make ads for a living?
I didn't. I didn't until I had the job that I was doing it. So I went to school for illustration at FIT, and I finished the 2 years, and I was like, this probably not my jam. And so I started literally looking in the New York Times classifieds for jobs while I was still in college. And I went on one interview at Time Magazine, and then the second interview was this agency called Kirshenbaum and Bond.
Yeah.
And back in the day, by just dumb luck, the thing I happened to find in this classifieds was like with the best boutique New York agency at the time.
Yeah.
It was 1992, 1993, 93, I think it was. And
They put an ad in the classifieds?
yeah, I mean, this is how old I am.
Well,
and
like why? I feel like couldn't they just go into their network and like how agencies do it today? It seems like. Just ask around?
This is the kicker. What they were looking for was basically a studio assistant, and they were looking for someone that knew how to use a computer. So the agency, no one basically knew how to use a computer because it was coming from the 80s basically, and all the art directors, anyone that like
they're already in. Like
they're already in, and
Yeah.
there was they had just, I think, bought, they had like 2 computers in the agency. I'm not shitting you. And I had taken a loan out maybe like 6 months prior to that. There was like an Apple representative on the campus at FIT and took a $6,000 loan out to buy a Mac.
That's crazy
And
expensive.
It was
Yeah.
it was more than my student loans because had financial aid, and so like it took me longer to pay that loan off than it did my school because it was a state school and it was like had financial aid. So
times have changed.
Yeah. And so I had a computer. I kind of self-taught myself because I was like, there's something to this whole computer thing. Like this is where something's gonna happen with it.
Yeah.
And so that basically. What they were looking for, that agency was looking, they weren't looking for a creative, they were just looking for like a studio monkey to understand the computer. So I like made a fake portfolio and kind of put myself in there, and it was just kind of bullshitted my way in and saying that I understood how to like do all the things like make mechanicals or do whatever it needed to be done on the computer, but I didn't know any of that stuff. It was just self-taught. And then so after I think 4 or 5 interviews, and I like went way overboard. I was like making custom art for each interview. I was like making custom art and thank you cards. Like something told me like I this job was like I walked in and there was like there was an energy it was real. Like
what did it look like? Like what was the office like then?
It was on Spring Street and 6th Avenue. It was the 3rd floor of a building, and it wasn't an open plan, but the studio, we called it the Horseshoe. It was basically like an open pit, and then more senior people had their offices, but like the junior art directors would kind of work in the pit. And they were just starting to set up computers in this pit, and they were communal. No one had their own computer.
Of course.
If you needed to go do something on the computer, you would grab one. It was almost like that fucking library. Like you'd go grab one and do your thing. And then I was the guy that ultimately got hired to just help art directors that didn't know how to use the computer do what they needed to do.
Holy crap.
And it was it was insane. Like the whole thing, because like this is a time when print ads were still a thing, obviously. And if you wanted to design one and make one, you would write out your headline. You would go in a type specimen book, pick the type, pick the leading and the tracking, fax that to the type company. They would then by hand set the type on a machine called a typepositor, which was this whole thing. And then 2 days later, they would deliver you this piece of type.
That's insane.
It was actually wild seeing like catching the tail end of that.
Yeah, you were like at that whole transition.
It was basically I was a transition.
And what did you learn from that then? Like was it true like because we're talking about it today, that a lot of parallels with AI. Like the people that did not adopt that technology, like the computer, did they get like phased out? Or they?
Yeah, I mean, I remember there were some folks in the studio. There were a couple. So the studios had like multiple people because anytime you made an ad, it had to be laid out on a big board. There had to be registration marks, tape. There was like it was a very intense, precise physical thing that you had to do to prep these physical mechanicals to then send to like GQ, and that would run it as an ad. Like it was, as I explain it, I'm laughing because you can't imagine how archaic this thing is. So there was like multiple studio people, and I remember there were a couple that were like, I'm going to start taking night classes to learn the computer, and then there were a couple that were like, fuck the computer, no, like I'm not doing that. Like this job's not going away. Like everyone's going to need to cut vellum and put registration marks on a mechanical.
Wow.
And so I don't ultimately know if some of those people ended up kind of embracing it in the end, but I know it quickly accelerated, and within a few years, those people weren't working in the studio, and the people that learned the computer were fine, and the ones that didn't.
It's obviously so clear the parallels with AI today.
It's crazy.
Just like in the computer, like just staying up to date on the technologies, the Adobe's, Midjourney's, Sora's, all of that. Runway. Those. It's just so clear. Like, there's so many lessons that are paralleled there. So you broke in that way. How did you get to art direction, copywriting? Where'd you go?
Art direction.
Yeah, so, illustration major.
Yeah, so I'm a visual person, and so I would do, the first few weeks I was still like living in the dorms. I didn't tell the school that I wasn't going back to school. So I was just like, because I didn't know where to like get an apartment. So I was like, I've got a job that I can't really do. I'd go home every night to the dorm room like stressed out with the stomach ache because like they were asking me things like, I don't know how to make a mechanical for a magazine on the computer. So the first few weeks were pretty rough.
Yeah, you faked it till you made it.
You have to.
And then you kind of get in there. It's like, oh shit.
I think that the faking to the make, I'm a big proponent of that.
Yeah.
And then you have to be ambitious and smart enough to like do the make it
Yeah.
part. Like you could do the fake. Anyone could do the fake it part,
Right.
And then
But
you've got to like really put in the like
then you
work
make
to make
it.
it.
Yeah.
Or you don't, or you're like you're kind of found out.
Yeah.
And so I
That's
hustled
where the
it-
imposter syndrome comes in, I feel like, for a lot of people. Or like,
That's interesting.
I don't know where I'm really going with it, but like once again, like that anxiety, like trying to close that gap of like
Because
what you say and what you think.
No
and
one's
what
ever
you can do.
trained to do this stuff. Like,
Never.
I mean, so everyone's doing some version of faking it till you make it. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's a truth, and I happen to do it quite a bit because I really just basically lied to.
For sure.
But
You got to get in.
you got to get in, and so I'm always, you know, when you ask like what I look for in a person, I think I have a pretty good sense when I can tell someone is a hard worker, like is truly like gets satisfaction and is not afraid to work hard. That's probably the first thing I look for.
How do you find that? Like, is it just through their resume, what they've done, like what they've made in their portfolio?
Well, as a, you know, if you're hiring someone, you know, yes, creatively, the work they did says a lot. But for me, meeting someone in person and just getting a sense of how they talk about what they're looking to do, how they talk about what they've done.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you just kind of pick up all the signals of, yeah, this person is wants to come in and do things. This person is not afraid to like have a crazy deadline or be told like, hey, we're starting from scratch. Like we've got 2 days. Like let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of tell the people that are going to be precious and are probably, you know, going to recoil at something like that, and the people that are like, yeah, no, I'm here to learn. I'm here to work hard.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think one of the biggest things to look for, because, you know, especially looking at people's work, it's so hard to tell who's responsible for what. So many hands are touched on so many things, and
Right.
it's gotten just easier and easier to lay claim to things and throw things on websites, and
Yeah.
so
That's true.
To me, it's as much, you know, what someone's.
You can combat that. I feel like if you talk about exactly what you worked on, how you went through this,
Totally.
coming up with the idea, like, you
Totally.
know, I use this software, I can show you the files, like there's some
Totally.
proof in there, and like talking about how you came to that work. I think that's like a decent solution, but right, like the mindset, being willing to roll up your sleeves, you can kind of get that from those conversations.
For sure, and
Yeah.
and that I have a pretty good nose for, and and that's why I've been, you know, pretty happy with who we've had on the team, and we have a good crew of people, and no one's afraid to work.
Listeners will make like custom little graphics to get my attention, which I think is really interesting. Like,
Oh, that's so cool.
yeah, like there was a kid, a student, a young adult actually, if we're thinking about college kids. Young adult sent a photo of me in front of like a Geno's cheesesteak in Philly, and like just like something quick like that. Like
Yeah.
I know he made it, and like it was clever. I think those are really fun too. But I digress. Going back to how
No,
you broke
but
into.
that's not digressive. But that's someone showing that they're going to put an effort in.
Yeah.
That means something. Now, if you're doing it and it's just like wildly annoying and you're adding burden to someone's time, like
For sure.
No, there's plenty of bad examples. I remember back in the day of people sending really corny gifts or corny like
Yeah.
but just like a real effort and a real like no, I thought about this and I am dead serious. I want to talk to you. I want to get your attention. Like, yeah, we're marketers. I'm hiring that person to ultimately get attention for that client. Like,
Yep.
that's what we're in the business to do. So, yeah, like someone being able to market themselves, you know, that goes a long way.
For sure. And there's so many fun ways to do it. But I want to get back to how you went from that studio producer
Sure.
to actual art director. Because so you had to figure stuff out. You came back to your dorm,
Yeah, like,
stressing about that.
Stressing about that.
Yeah.
Finally kind of figured it out. They also were smart enough to hire someone senior to me that really knew what they were doing, and that person taught me stuff. So like they thankfully, and I'm still friends with a bunch of these people. They had enough faith in me that I was worth keeping and not firing, though I couldn't really do everything or most things I said I could do. So they figured that out. I figured that out. And then I quickly just like at nights or on weekends, I offered to any of the art directors, any of the creative directors, like I'll work for free. Like if you have an idea, like I'll happily put that together. Cause I saw what advertising was within that first week, where it was like someone has there's a problem, there's a challenge. Someone then comes up with an idea that's like, at its best, like an unexpected solution to that then has a voice to it and then has something visual that's exciting or interesting, and there's a tension, and how that all came together. My mind just was like, oh, fuck, this is exactly what I want to do. Like I wanted something to be creative. I wanted to make my living doing things, making things, and I didn't know what that was until that first week, and it was like, holy shit, like it's funny and it looks good and it's interesting and it's cool and it looked like everyone was having a good time doing it. Like, what was there not to like?
Yeah.
I was very fortunate that the place I landed happened to be full of creative people.
Yeah, that's a great job.
It's a great.
So you were helping with like from taking concept to like mock-up?
Exactly. That's what I was hired to do. And then I was being, who became my business partner, Andy, at the time, he was a creative director, and he always had tons of different ideas, whether it was spec work or for an idea that a client didn't buy that he really liked. And he was up for having anyone or anyone that he, thought was talented, anyone to help bring those ideas to life, because he was a writer. So I just basically became his kind of wingman and just made the things that, and by doing that, I learned what advertising was. I learned what a good ad is. I learned how to art direct something. And, he and I just really clicked creatively, and, we worked together on and off for years and then started Partners in Spade together. So that's so, that very first job and that like stroke of luck set me up with someone that ultimately is the person I started my business with, and the people that at that job I'm still friends with. I just had dinner with that whole crew 2 weeks ago in LA.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So as you look at your career, if you were talking to yourself, if you go back in time, talk to yourself, what would you say to a young Anthony?
You got really fucking lucky. There's nothing I would really change, because the next job after that was Wide in Portland in '96.
Wow.
And that was that was another fake it till you make it. Like, so
how'd that one?
Same.
What'd you work on?
That I was hired for Microsoft, but was around, literally giants. Like these guys, like.
Who are some of the CCOs or CDs there?
I mean, Stacy Wall, Jim Riswold, Susan Hoffman.
Wow.
Michael Preve, Bob Moore. And then there was a whole strata of like kind of peers my age. They all run their own agencies now. So like, that there was like all the working creatives that.
Who are some of those?
Let's see. So Jeff Kling, who's a dear friend of mine, Eric Silver, Eric King.
Wow.
Who else was part of that crew? I'm trying to think back. Jeff Williams, who's still there. And then there was a crowd of people like Scott Vetrone and Ian Reichenthal that came right after us.
God, these are big names.
Yeah, I have to.
I got to get some of these people on the show.
It was. If I was lucky with Kirschbaum in the beginning, getting that job and kind of faking it in that way and pretending I was an art director, even though I was just basically a studio guy, and putting together a good enough book where they were like, okay, we could use they paid me $24K a year, like junior, or whatever it was, on Microsoft. But I was like, yes, whatever gets me to that place.
Get into those spots, like those meccas.
Whatever you can do. And, to this day, that they're still the best agency on the planet, I would argue.
Yeah, there's an argument there, yeah.
Just in terms of their approach. And I ended up working for them in Portland, worked for them in London, did a short little stint in New York, and then freelanced over the years.
Yeah.
And they're what that agency taught me in terms of approach to creative and just a general just a general creative outlook and how to be creative in a commercial sense, or in a non-commercial sense, and it is still I still take that with me, and so the lesson I learned of those it's almost like real estate, location. Like it doesn't matter what you're getting paid, doesn't matter what you're working on. Being in the right building, being with the right set of people, the earlier you can do that, the more you're absorbing that, the better lessons, the better everything that you're getting, and it only then just kind of snowballs from there.
That's the single best use of this show, and is finding the people that you aspire to be like that are on this show, and then seeing where they're at, because people tend to move around still.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like find out where those people are that you admire, see where they're at, and then chances are they'll flock to like other amazing people.
That makes sense. Yeah, like how best can I help anyone listening? Like what's am I doing okay?
You're doing great. You're doing great. Just telling your story, sharing like your advice like this is so helpful. But really where the real beauty comes in is if they're gonna watch this, or listen to it, they're going to then check out Mythology. They're going to look you up. And if they want to work with you, they're going to reach out and say, hey, I listened to your show a couple times. Like, I love this quote. Can I please get a coffee chat with you? Or can I schedule a virtual call?
Totally.
So what's the best way for them to reach out to you? Is it LinkedIn?
Sure. LinkedIn works. Or anyone can email me, anthony@mythology.com.
Yeah.
I'm always happy. And it might take me a couple days to respond
sure.
if we're crushed. But yeah, I'd be happy to.
Do you have interns or anything like that?
We're gonna have interns. We usually have interns in the summer.
This might be a little bit later, so it might be already full, but for next year.
Yeah, I don't know if the department's kind of picked their interns yet or not. It's a good question.
Yeah, but something to look out for. And hey, listen, if I was breaking in today, I would say I just want to show up and shadow for free. I'll work for free. Like, why the frick not? Try it.
There were so many things. And listen, my time, when I started, it was a different time. In a lot of ways, it's evolved in a good way. But there were so many things I did for free. I'm not asking anyone to work for free for me, but I do agree with that philosophy. Like, all the work I did with Andy in the early days was for free. All the spec work I did, anything I did in that book that I basically showed to get into Widen, I bet you 3/4 of that was work I did for free just because I knew it would give me something to then show. Like, it's as a creative, like, you're only as good as your work product and what like now it's a lot easier to make spec work or for spec work to look good. It's like back then though, the just to get the chance to be able to be on a set or to shoot something or to have something that was made was like those opportunities were just a lot harder. The barrier was higher, and just so I did anything I could to be able to say, like, I did these 10 things last year.
Well, our listeners, if anybody's going to listen to an advertising podcast, for 40 minutes, however long, they are in that demographic of they want to work hard. They want to break into this business. At a good agency, they know our brand, and like we're okay to speak like that with our listeners. So
great. Yeah.
They understand it if they made it this far. They're hungry.
And you know what? Like, it worked out. Like,
I look at you. Like,
I have the career that I better than what I had expected.
Yeah.
Like, I met more interesting people. I have clients that I want to continue to work with. Like, yeah, it worked.
You just have to. Everybody has to go above and beyond. Unfortunately, like, you have to. Whatever the deliverable is, whatever the expectation is for that worst client or that worst brief, like, you just have to go above and beyond if you want to be successful. If you don't want to be, like,
there's a
that's
different
fine
version.
too.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
You can do that. If
totally.
if that's not for you, the path of like working extra hard, like, that's fine too. You can be comfortable at a art director level for a long time and just focus on your craft.
Totally. There's no right or wrong. It's if you want a certain outcome, then that is, and even as an agency, I know there's sometimes when a client's asked for something, it's the 10th round of revisions and everyone is just done with it. And I know if we just don't give them something, it's almost like, yeah, you have to go above and beyond, and I have to push a team sometimes and push myself and just be like, I know if we just have a flat meeting, everyone's just the momentum's going to get lost. Like, you have to show that we're still hungry for it. We have to prove that, like, we don't get tired and that we do still care about them more than they realize. That holds true whether you're a person, a company.
Yep. Whether you're trying to get your first job or your next job, or if you're an agency trying to get a client, there's so many parallels between.
It's all the
that
same.
stuff. Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, this is great. They know how to reach out to you, Anthony. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. Like, I'm going to keep following along. Send us your work for the board.
Let's do it.
And we'll hopefully cover you guys soon.
So good to meet you, dude.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, crushed it.